morning, good afternoon, and I guess good day. This is the 13th meeting of the Bitcoin Cash Developer Group. And today's meeting will begin with introductions and maybe a brief description of what you're working on. In particular, any items that relate to cross-implementation issues. So, and welcome to Jason, a new face in the crowd. Thank you for attending today. All right, we'll start with Antony, and then my top left, Antony Zegers.
Oh, hi. Yeah, I'm Antony Zegers, also known as Mangarian online. Yeah, I work mostly on BitPrim, and I've been focusing on specifications while doing testing stuff for the upgrade. And that's the main thing.
Thank you, Antony. Next, I have Mark Lundeberg.
Hi, I'm Mark Lundeberg. I'm a developer who's most recently working on this upgrade, designing the features and getting them implemented in Bitcoin ABC.
Right, thank you, Mark. Next, we have Fernando.
Hello, I am Fernando Pelliccioni. I am the maintainer of BitPrim node, the last of BitPrim Mohicans, maybe.
Thank you, Fernando. Next, we have Matias Garcia.
Hello, I'm Matias Garcia. I work for BitPay, and I run the wallet team and the open source initiative at BitPay.
Great, thank you so much. Amaury?
Yes, I'm Amaury, the lead developer of Bitcoin ABC.
Thank you. New face in the crowd, Jason. I will not try and pronounce your last name. I'm going to let you do it for yourself.
Nice. Yeah, I'm Jason Dreyzehner, and contributor to Bitcoin TS, the TypeScript implementation, Bitcoin Cash.
Great, and formerly with BitPay, if I remember.
Yes, formerly with BitPay.
Great, thank you. Next on my list is Andrea Suisani, also known as SickPig.
Hello everybody, Dreyzehner here, Bitcoin Unlimited developer.
Thank you very much, Andrea.
You're welcome.
All right, we'll move on to the discussion of the upgrade time, and we'll start with item number A, which is Bitcoin ABC's version 0.20.0 has been released. Do any other implementations have questions about specific details relating to implementing the network upgrade?
Well, maybe we should kind of give a quick summary of what's in there. I mean, it's no surprise. It's what we've been talking about for a while, but yeah, it was just the Schnorr signatures for check multi-sig. So basically everything in scripts that does signature checking can now use Schnorr signatures. And then there was the minimal data flag, which is basically just making it so that when you push data onto the stack or use numbers, they have to be encoded in a minimal way. I don't know, Mark sort of pretty much implemented all of that stuff, so I don't know if you want to talk about anything else, or it's pretty much what we've been talking about for a while, so there's no surprise.
Yeah, I don't know, the details are all in the specs. I don't know if it's worth going into them right now, but yeah, I hope it's well specified and clear. Definitely.
Okay. Anyone want to add anything regarding Bitcoin ABC upgrade?
I just want to say that we are starting to implement Nord on our, thanks to Jason's implementation on TypeScript. We are going to pour that into our wallet, and once, and thanks to the multi-signature support, we will be able to fully implement it in Copay in the next month. That's it.
That sounds like some good news. Thumbs up from Amaury. Anybody else want to comment on that?
I guess it's the next item, but I don't know if you're aware of the testnet, Matias. Like we set up a testnet where the upgrade is activated. So I know a few people are already using it to test stuff out, like Pox, who does Crescent Pay Wallet, was playing around with it. So So yeah, I think we put the link to it in the chat here. So basically, if anyone wants to like test out that stuff, that's a good place to do it.
Got it. Thanks.
I'm just going to put it in again, just in case those that arrived a bit late don't see it. Are you sure there's not something you want to add about the testnet?
I mean, so basically what we do is we make an upgrade testnet where we set the activation time earlier, and then when it activates, we, before and after, we try broadcasting a new transaction with the new features. This works. Yeah, so this is more or less replicating things that we have already within the internal tests of Bitcoin ABC. So there are no surprises, but it just in case we really want to check that out. And yeah, now the testnet is there, available. You can broadcast your Schnorr multisig transactions, though there isn't any public, released software out there that actually does this right now. So yeah, developers only, I guess.
Well, thank you for that little bit of extra explanation. I'm sure it will help people in the audience to understand. So moving on to item number 3, which is to open the floor for other topics the panelists may wish to raise. Let's just go around and see if anybody has anything. I'm going to make a guess that Jason would like to give us a bit of an update on some of the stuff he's working on.
Sure, I can do that.
Appreciate it. That'd be great.
Yeah, so in the past week or so, I've been updating the Bitcoin TS library, which is a TypeScript implementation of a lot of the pieces of Bitcoin Cash and of Bitcoin, and also supports, with a little bit of modification, I suppose, BSV stuff. The primary work was getting the virtual machine, the Bitcoin Cash virtual machine, fully updated and working on the latest version of what's working in consensus and standard mode. And as part of that, I also compiled Amaury Schnorr stuff from Bitcoin ABC to WebAssembly and put some convenient TypeScript wrapper around it with some nice documentation to make it a little bit more accessible for JavaScript projects. So I released both of those things, first the Schnorr thing, and then finally when I got the virtual machine passing the script tests, I released that the other day as well.
Some exciting stuff. Anybody have any questions for Jason or comments?
Actually, I'm a little bit curious. What do you need a virtual machine script virtual machine for in JavaScript? I'm just curious what sort of applications does that see? Because I guess you're not going to be running a full node with it, or maybe you are. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a good question. I've thought about playing around with some full node stuff. I don't think I'm going to bother with it because it's not particularly useful right now. But it's nice to have an implementation that's a little bit more understandable from just the JavaScript ecosystem point. But then the thing that I actually wanted with it was an inspectable virtual machine, so you could inspect state by state what's happening. Other than logging and stuff, logging as the C is running. So it's a virtual machine that's a little bit easier to build hooks into from a web application and do like live debugging with. So my original goal was to get it working on IDE.bitauth.com, which is that virtual machine interactive debugger. So that's my purpose for getting a working version of virtual machine, was getting it working on that website basically. So I could play with things in the browser a little bit more effectively.
This is analogous to this tool Meep that Chris developed, but
right
on the web.
Yes,
as
exactly.
That's nice. Cool.
And so Meep, and there's what is it? BTC DEB, I think, is another one. There's several others like the command line script interpreter. Script interpreters, which are instrumented to allow you to stop at each step and back up and things like that. And my goal with it was just to get a UI over it that's a little bit easier to innovate on the UI front, so you can have hover tooltips and things like that that are a little more convenient and faster to work with. So yeah, trying to make it kind of like a VS Code like experience. But yeah, and then I have a few other things that I'm hoping to do with Bitcoin Script in the next few months or so. that will be useful for.
Cool.
Great. Any further comments or with regard to Jason's work?
One question that might actually be useful here is it's maybe like a less meaningful housekeeping task, but in implementing the script tests .json test vectors, I noticed there are a lot of cases which are strange combinations of flags being passed to the compiler, or to the eval script method, which should really never happen in production. Like are unlikely to have, they're like things that are happening from before the BCH fork. So it's like, 2014 flags mixed with 2018 flags and leaving out 2016 flags. And I assume that's to get full coverage in the C++ implementation. But it sure makes the test vectors a little bit more difficult for me to implement on a version of the virtual machine, which is only supposed to support things that are live supported on the network. Has anybody messed with that in a while, or what's the status of script tests?
So, okay, maybe Mark can go with that, but quickly, we need to make sure that all kind of weird combination of flag work, because for two main reasons. The first one is because we need to be able to synchronize the path during IPD. And so we need to make sure that various or combination of flag works. But also there are different set of flags that are used for consensus level code and for what we consider standard. So the standard set of flag is a bit different. So there are all kind of weird combination that can happen in practice. But if you just want to do a debugger, you may not want to support all the weird combinations.
Right. So I have both the standard, I call it standard and strict, but in my implementation, but it's the same as consensus and standard. So there are two sets of flags that are currently active in production, one for peer-to-peer stuff and one for actual block validation. But there are some weird combinations of there's partial combinations of standard flags that would never exist in production anymore. I guess, well, I would have to.
Most of those are actually due to historical reasons more than anything else.
Yeah, actually, we can move on and I'll ask for a specific, I'll probably send you a message actually.
Mark, you were going to comment on that.
Well, yeah, I would agree with what Amaury said. It's kind of for historical reasons. I think partly in ABC, there's a desire to keep things the same, because if there's going to be additional tests we want to backport from Bitcoin Core, for example, but we want them to be able to fit in nicely. But yeah, maybe we can talk about this more later, but I can see what you're getting at. That's maybe interesting to develop more test vectors that use just the modern flags, let's say.
Yeah, I started playing with it, but I didn't think, I was curious what the plan was from the Bitcoin ABC front. Because there are also a lot of there are a lot of things that aren't really tested. They're kind of a little bit tested, but it's not testing what remains on the stack. It's only testing whether or not the opcode exists. And it's more than half of the swap or half of the stack opcodes are tested with these kind of tests that if everything returned true, they would still pass.
Okay. All right. Yeah, we'll have to improve the test coverage then. Yeah. That's interesting. Okay. Again, that's probably historical, because
I'm sure it is. Yeah, I looked at it. Nobody's touched some of them in 3 or 4 years. But then there are some new ones, some of the new opcodes have new tests that don't use strict encoding, which couldn't possibly happen on the Bitcoin Cash network. Sure. So it's that's what I was kind of curious about.
Yeah, that might have just been that might have just been an oversight that the flag didn't get added into those tests. So that could be changed at any time in principle.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Cool. Good explanation. I will move on to the next item then. Today also starts discussions on features for the May 2020 network upgrade. How do people need to bring things forward for the May 2020 upgrade? And are there already things that are being discussed or on the wish list?
Well, I guess I'll just maybe comment on the top, since we're talking about script stuff right now. I've kind of had in mind that, and like there's various proposals that people come up with for adding an instruction to the script. Like for example, opmol has been out there for a while, and there's a bunch of other ideas that people have. So I've basically been thinking it would be good to come up with some kind of overall plan or approach for how we want to think about possibly adding stuff to the scripting language or doing any like consensus upgrades to that. Because basically just it would be good to have some kind of overall strategy for that, and you know, to like have a complete script system rather than like we don't want to just have some kind of scattershot approach of just like adding things that seem like a good idea at the time or something like that. So I guess maybe like it's just kind of, I'm just thinking about that. I don't have a solid proposal or anything at this point, but maybe people like Jason or other people who are like heavily involved with script might want to start thinking about that and what's a good way to approach all that.
Okay, thank you, Antony.
I don't think so. I mean, we just released, ABC just released yesterday this current upgrade, so maybe we're not thinking to the next one yet.
Yeah, I guess if this new upgrade has been released, then it's probably time to start working towards that. So I'll leave that for you guys. A short but effective meeting. I would thank you all for attending, and I hope you're all enjoying your summer if you're in the Northern Hemisphere, and your winter if you're in the Southern Hemisphere. Thank you very much, Jason, for joining us this time, and we'll look forward to seeing you again.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.
Bye-bye, guys.